Does that make sense? Okay. Now, let's say you design concrete that your average test value was 3,500. Statistically speaking, what percentage of the time are you going to fail to make your target? 50%. Okay. Now, are you willing to live in a building that there's like a 50-50 shot that it's okay? Okay, most of us aren't. Okay? So what you then have to do is you have to say, okay, how confident do I want to be? And we talk about things like the lower 10th percentile, okay? Where 10% of the values would be less and 90% of the values would be higher. Okay? Or, and this never goes to 0. Or I can say, where's my 99th percentile or my 1%? Okay? So 99% of the time it's higher, 1% of the time it's lower. Okay? This is a much lower value than that. And it's lower than this. Okay? So what I'm essentially going to do is confidence in this thing actually working, I'm going to have to pay for it. The more confident I want to be, okay, the more critical the structure is. Okay? The more I'm going to want to be sure that it's above what it's supposed to be. Does that make sense? Now, knowing that, okay, what you have to ask is, where am I willing to put my target? Okay? And let's say you say, okay, I'm willing for 10% of the time that this concrete isn't going to be up to spec. If I were to test it, 10% of the time it's going to fail to meet the required value. 90% of the time would be good, okay? But you know, it's a building. It's probably got multiple redundancy systems in it. It's probably not going to fall on my head. It's fine. Okay? Now, if it's a hospital in an earthquake zone, I may want to be more confident than that. Okay? How confident am I? What I can do is I can say I want 3,500 PSI, but I want it to represent this sort of lower 10% boundary. Or I could put it all the way here. Okay? Now what that means though, is that when you test, you want your average, okay, if this is 3,500, let's say it's a good test, this actually comes out to be more like, I think we targeted about 4,500, okay? So we target a 4,500 strength to put ourselves up in the safe zone. And so when I design, I actually design it for higher than it needs to be because I actually want to be sure that when it's tested, that it's good. Realizing too, that all the trucks are going to come into my concrete site, okay? And I'm going to take samples out of those trucks. So I'm going to get samples, random samples, okay? I don't want half the samples to fail because if half the samples fail, half the time I'm going to have to go and tear the building down again and rebuild it because it failed, okay? So, when you design, you have to think about this, okay? So as concrete designers, this is part of what we deal with, okay? It is a variable material. It does have spread. We do have to account for the fact that it can vary, okay? The higher it gets, the more variable, like the higher this target number is, the more variable it becomes, and actually the bigger the jump that I have to make for my target level. Okay? So, you may read some provisions in the standard and that sort of thing about design strength and that sort of thing. You have to figure out what they mean. Okay? One of the things in your table, in the ASHTO table, which you're pulling your strength from, here's a column that talks about strength. It has a term up the top. You need to figure out what that term means and what the implications of that are for when you design. Okay? Otherwise, if you aim for 30%, 3,500, I don't know, whatever you're aiming for, if you design and aim for it, you may well end up there on the day, and you may get what you aim for half the time. Okay? One of your cylinders may be good, and the other cylinder may likely be low. We want to push ourselves this way. Make sense?